Welcome to the Empowered Living Zone, where you can create the life you crave. With me, Dr. A, as a psychologist for over 30 years, a transformational life coach, and an expert in self-empowerment, my life's work has been inspired by the beautifully powerful resilience of the human spirit. We will share stories and successes of people who have not only overcome personal adversity, but have used their traumas and hardships courageously as a springboard into greatness. Create positive transformational shifts on your way to achieving phenomenal success. Get ready to level up as you move beyond the challenging terrain of your life's journey into the empowered living zone. Ignited by spirit, fueled by purpose, and guided by vision, the Empowered Living Zone show starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. A, and you are listening to the Empowered Living Zone on Transformation Talk Radio. And with me today is my guest, Dr. Pat Baselli. Good to see you, Pat.
It's great to be here. I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this episode, but more importantly, I am really thrilled about the message that you said yes to bring this to the world, because this is a conversation we really need to have this year.
We do, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I've been talking to myself for 4 days about it.
You and I both. I think it's been a couple of weeks for me, or maybe a couple of decades.
Oh my gosh.
Well, before we get into introductions, and I'm going to take some time to introduce you properly, Dr. Pat. Before we do that, there's a couple of things that I just want to share with the listeners. One is I wanted to let the listeners in on that this is my first podcast ever. So this is a big leap for me. And let me tell you, I think it's been a long time coming and a long time in the making. And I've been preparing for this for probably all of my life. I just didn't know it for this moment in time. And boy, I think I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say and a lot of things to cover. And, I've gone back and forth as I've been preparing for this. My type A personality, I've probably sat with this for 30 hours just preparing for this moment here on the podcast. And I've gone back and forth from being really, really excited and going, oh my God, this is going to be great. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be inspirational. And I'm going to help lots and lots of people, from that place to, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. It's going to be horrible. Nobody's going to listen to it. It's going to collect dust somewhere. But anyway, regardless of that, I'm here. I've shown up, and I trust that whoever it's supposed to reach and whoever it's supposed to resonate with, it will be there. And also I do want to say too, Pat, kind of my intent in doing this, I want this to be real. I'm real. I want to be real. I want this to be real for my listeners. I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to be honest and transparent about my journey. I will share the great things in my life, and I will share the hard things that I have gone through that have really, really have been the fuel and kind of the foundation for even getting me to this place of, talking about the empowered living zone. The whole creation, the whole idea of the empowered living zone has come from my direct experience, my own hardships, as a matter of fact. And so, I really want this podcast to be a conversation. I want it to be a conversation between two old wise friends. I want it to feel good. And I also want it to touch the hearts of others and inspire my listeners, knowing that they can have more and create more in their lives.
Yeah.
That's important to me.
Yeah. What's really cool about what you said is, and this is really the difference. I've been working with you now for a while, to bring this to reality. But what I love about it, and I want to say it again, the empowered living zone. Now, the reason that hits me, and this is what I've learned from you over time, is we use the word empowerment. We're going to talk about it. But what you're doing and what you're coaching individuals and organizations about is how to live this way. See, empowered living, not empowerment as an end game, but empowered living. And when you talk about that, how do you know when you're in that place of harmony? And that's what I hear you saying with the empowered living zone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and it took me decades to get here. It took me get decades to get to this place of even knowing what that is. And when I say knowing, I don't mean talking about it intellectually. I mean experiencing it. And I will tell you that there are lots of surprises. There were lots of surprises along my journey in the sense of, oh, I didn't know that this horrible thing that happened to me or that I experienced was actually going to be the thing that opened the door to even better things. And so, there's always these surprises on our journey, and we'll be getting to all of those. There's going to be lots of juice here. There's lots of light, there's lots of dark, there's lots of good stuff that gets you into this place of understanding, what that means to be in that zone of empowered living. And before we get into the juice of it all, I do want to thank those that are here listening. I also want to thank those that have supported me along the way, not only in my life, but in particular. This is really important to me. I want to thank Dr. Pat. She has been with me through this process. I want to thank Jessica Henderson and Kim Hunt and Sierra Bitten, all at the Transformation Network and Transformation Talk Radio for their support. I will be honest, I don't think I would be sitting here today without all of you, because you've been wonderful. You've been amazing. You've supported me. You've believed in me. And it's given me lots of courage to do this. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. I always say this, and I've said this to you. I always get asked by my coaches, Pat, where are you with where you are and where you're going? I said, I can't imagine my life without having the experience I have with the amazing individuals I work for. And it is an honor to take this journey with you. And I don't take that lightly. When two people connect, great things are done. And this is really what inspires all of us here. We know that we are as good and only as good as we help you become. That's what we believe. Boy, that sounded good. Didn't that sound good?
That did sound good.
Oh, I right. Sierra, write that down.
Write that down.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. That'll be a whole nother podcast title. Remember that.
Good thing we're recording this, right?
Yes.
And what's so cool about this is, years ago when we had the vision to go the video television route, people looked at us. Of course, the technology wasn't what it is today. They really did look at us like we had a couple of different heads. And I said, yeah, we're like Monster Zero. We have 3 dragon heads and we know exactly what we're doing. And here we are. But it's because of you that we've built it. Yeah, we had a vision, but all of you, every email, we actually had a host today give us an idea we hadn't had yet.
Wow.
I know. And awesome. I dragged Jessica in the room with Sierra. We were doing I dragged them in a room. And I said, Jessica, can we do this? And Jessica, genius Jessica, looked at me and said, yeah, we can. I got to send Merrick a programming change. You got to love the ride, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I love the magic of it. It's funny. I think that's a great example. Sometimes how life works, things just magically happen. They just magically appear. And it's like, it's amazing. Just amazing that happens. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Pat, I want to also say that I am honored and that you are here as well. So the honor is mutual. I'm sure some of the readers are aware of who you are, but for those of the readers that are not aware of who you are, I would like to give you an introduction so that people know who I have the honor of talking to today in my very, very first podcast.
Thank you.
Dr. Pat, she is the CEO and owner of Unlimited Possibilities Now and the Transformation Network. She is a leader in the field of human potential, and she's the creator of the remarkable trust-busting process. She is an international award-winning talk radio host, a TV commentator, certified career and belief coach, dynamic seminar leader, award-winning author and researcher, an inspirational speaker, and a CEO of a successful motivational company. As a top host of the internationally acclaimed The Dr. Pat Show, the talk radio to thrive by, which has been in the #1 spot in Seattle for 8 years running, Dr. Pat reaches millions of people each year with a powerful, life-changing message. She's called Oprah of radio by her listeners, and she's blowing the doors off traditional talk radio. Dr. Pat is well respected in all of her roles in the human potential field, and she has received numerous awards for her empowering messages. See how amazing you sound?
Thank you for the reminder. Now I need to take a nap. No. Thank you for doing that. It's great to hear. And then there are moments as you're talking about it. Are you talking about me for real? But you said this before, Dr. A, and I want to get back to it. It's taken you multiple decades to get here. But the pathway was made clear for you, whether that be intuitively, energetically, or otherwise. And that's why you and I are here today. That's part of what we're going to talk about. Is look, if you've got 5 feet of snow in front of you, you got to find a snowplow. Or you just sit there and do nothing. So which is it going to be? Are you going to get your snowplow today? Or are you going to sit? Some days I sit. Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Yes, it is. It is all good. And I'll tell you what, we're gonna leave the listeners hanging a little bit. I think this is a great time to create some buildup. We're gonna take a break, and when you return, we are going to get into this whole notion of self-empowerment and what it's about. So you're listening to the Empowered Living Zone with Dr. A and Dr. Pat, and we're going to take a quick break. We are back on the Empowered Living Zone with me, Dr. A, and Dr. Pat. And we are going to start unpacking this whole idea about what it means to be in the empowered living zone. And so we're going to get into the juice of it all. And what I'd like to do is to start talking about, or start the talk with, what is empowerment anyway? What does that mean? And what's really surprising about this, Pat, I have to tell you this, obviously being a psychologist for as long as I've been, we have these concepts that people just throw around. And when you really kind of dig into it, nobody knows what the hell they mean. And I will tell you, this is one of those. So, I was just curious as preparing to talk about this, I was curious. It's like, look it up in the dictionary. The dictionary always has accurate information about things, right? And so I look up empowerment, and quite frankly, I was a little surprised by it. So here in the dictionary, it defined empowerment as the act or action of empowering someone or something by granting them power and authority. And I about fell out of my chair. I was like, what? Oh my goodness, that is so far from the truth. Empowerment isn't something that somebody gives somebody else, it's not an action. It's not permission, so I'm chuckling about this. And then I thought, okay, I think pulling out the dictionary probably showed my A's. So I thought I need to do something a little bit more modern. So guess what I did? I Googled it.
Yeah.
So I Googled, everybody Googles, right? We talk about Google. So I Googled self-empowerment, and the result that I got was the process of taking control over your life by making decisions in your best interest. Okay. So this is a spoiler alert. And this is after being alive for almost, I'm getting almost to the 6th decade here. Spoiler alert. That is BS. We have no control over our lives.
Thank
We
you for the illusion of empowerment. Right here. You heard it first. The illusion of empowerment right here.
so I don't want anybody be misled. Empowerment has nothing to do with control over your life. You do not have control over your life. You can show up and you can do the best you can, and you can be mindful about it, and you can tap into that empowered zone, but we don't have control over the outcome. So I got a good chuckle about this. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think it's a great chuckle because there's so many jokes that are made about control and life and what we, I did a show the other day and I said we have really one thing we can control. We really do. And I said that's even questionable, and that is the power to choose. And the person I was talking with just kind of like looked at me a little dumbfounded. I think it was in a show. And I said, yeah, well, think about it. Give me something else you think you have control over. And I said, anything you're going to give me underneath it is your original choice to get you there. And I mean, there was a debate back and forth. And I said, well, wait a minute. You can choose the way you think. You can choose things. But we get stuck on this because we're looking for things that we fade into the illusion of control. And I think there have been times in my life where I thought I'm in control and then I'm not. I mean, what's your experience?
Well, let me tell you, I've gotten a few kicks in the butt from life around this whole control thing. Let me tell you, a little personal disclosure here. I am a type A personality, maybe even a double or triple A. And I think that I went through a big part of my life thinking that I had it all and I was in control of everything. And quite frankly, the universe had a different plan for me and got a little chuckle. And we'll get into that later today about how I realized I got that lesson a lot of times, Dr. Pat, that lesson of I don't have control.
Yeah.
And learning to accept that and still showing up. It's, it's not an excuse to not participate, right? It's not an excuse to not show up. It's just that you do your best and know that there are variables that you don't even see or aware of that impact the outcome of anything.
Yeah. If you really want to have an experience where you really take your first step to releasing control, tandem skydiving, try it. I mean, it was part of my process in exploring this idea of control. Tandem skydiving, folks. Okay, like I skydive, but you can skydive by yourself, but tandem, I'm telling you, tandem. You either have a man or a woman strapped on your back. You're in a little plane. It's going up. They're sleeping because that's what they do on the way up. And when you're ready to jump, next thing you know, you got this person attaching him or herself to you, and you're sitting on the edge of a plane at 15,000 feet.
Oh my goodness.
And you're thinking, let me out. And then what they do is they say, I'm going to count to 3. They never get to 3. You are out of that plane, but somewhere between 1 and 2. And I asked them about that. They said, oh, we've had too many people. By the time we get to 3, they've got a death grip on. No, I'm joking, but there is a realization because I did that, and it was part of this control exercise. Of course, I love the idea of skydiving, right? I just love the way that feels. But when you do that, it demonstrates you're not going to pull the chute. You're not looking at, am I at 10,000? You're not doing that. You're enjoying the ride and you're trusting that the person you signed on with knows what the bleep they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Pat, as you're saying that, I just have to share with you what a wonderful metaphor for life, right? What a wonderful metaphor for life is trusting that you've got that person there with you. And we'll talk about what that means. I'm speaking metaphorically, and just trusting the ride.
Yeah.
Whatever comes, trusting that, just trusting and accepting and just being in it instead of, we humans, we're stubborn. We like to fight. We like to resist. We like to We like to stir things up. Yeah. Yeah.
We have evidence. I mean, you and I are talking metaphorically, but there's evidence of how this works. And, for me, it's not just about the person, it's about the divine intelligence that we each believe in. And, I don't want to leave it out. I know you're going to talk about it, but it's so important in my life. And it wasn't always like that for me. But I've always been able to tap into the divine intelligence. And somehow that divine intelligence said to me, don't sleep in your aunt's bedroom, sleep on the fire escape. And there are things like that that you've heard, that you've been guided. I think putting it all together so that people understand that when we're talking about the empowered living zone, it's available to everyone. And there are things within that that you teach people, Dr. A. And part of that is what we're talking about now. There is a trust. Some people say trust in the universe, trust in God, but it doesn't matter what you call it. Trust in my frog that showed up this morning on my way out that I almost ran over in the car. But whatever that is, isn't it an important element of what you talk about in the empowered living zone?
Absolutely. And that will definitely be something that I talk about later is, that was, when I think about my own personal journey toward empowerment and being in an empowered state, divine intelligence is a very important part. It's the core of it. It's the actual core of it. And I will talk, to the listeners about my own personal experience with divine intelligence. It's interesting that you brought up the example of the fire escape, because I have a few examples just like that I would like to share that really actually provides, some evidence that this is real, and the stuff that we're talking about today is real. These aren't just concepts and ideas that we can discuss and, be intellectual about. This is real life. This is practical. And it's important, as a matter of fact, when we talk about, why is this important? Pat, I want to zoom out a moment. And I want to share some statistics with the listeners, because I think this is really important. You look at the United States, and the United States, has this reputation for being the wealthiest country in the world, the most blessed, having the most resources, people being the most successful. And when you look at that as the backdrop, some of this stuff might surprise you. In the United States, suicide is ranked 11th as the leading cause of death. 132 completed suicides happen every day. 30%, so that's 1 in 3, 30% of Americans have been diagnosed with depression. It does not include, this statistic does not include people who suffer from depression and don't get diagnosed. And it doesn't count the people that may be depressed and don't even know they're depressed. Anxiety is the same. 1 in 3 people struggle with anxiety. 1 in 10 people are taking antidepressants, and antidepressants are the 3rd most common prescription drug taken by Americans. As of last October, we had 11 mass shootings in the United States in 2023. We only had 1 in 1982 and 1 in 2000. Over the last 5 years, our violence has increased in general. Hate crimes in particular have dramatically increased in states. Okay. Why am I sharing this with you, Dr. Pat? Why is this important? Because here's what I believe. I believe these statistics are just a sign, a symptom of our mass chronic disempowerment and disconnection in our country. And I believe that if people understood what it meant to be empowered and they practiced empowerment every day, I think we would be in the right direction towards solving these problems that we have in the US.
Yeah. It's a breakdown of the fabric of human nature. It's a breakdown, the fabric of society. And when I say about a breakdown of the fabric, I mean, I look at this as a tapestry. Look at a tapestry. tapestries are beautiful until somebody pulls one of the loops out. And then what? But this is what you talked about in those statistics are stunning. And you and I both know in the world of psychology, they're understated, right?
Yes.
We know that. Why? Because people don't self-report. We misdiagnose. We don't know necessarily all of the reports that are being recorded. Suicides in a lot of counties in the United States are not reported. They're not your number one go-to for a lot of reasons. But even with that, they're going up. They're not going down. And I think that's your point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I genuinely believe that these things that are happening that we're seeing, that they are a product of disempowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's why I believe, this idea of being empowered is so important. It's not only important for each and every person's well-being, but it's important for us as a culture, as a society, as a community, as a tribe. Because if we're all practicing this empowerment, this being in this empowered place, wonderful, beautiful things will come from that. All right. I know it's time to take a break. You're listening to the Empowered Living Zone with Dr. A and Dr. Pat, and we'll be back shortly and we'll unpack a little bit more of this self-empowerment. We're back on the Empowered Living Zone with me, Dr. A, and Dr. Pat, and we are going to talk about how I got to this place of the Empowered Living Zone. I think personal stories are always important, but before I get into my own story, I do want to kind of put this out there because I always think about the skeptical listener and then be like, why in the world should I be listening to you? What is it that you have to share that I think is going to be more important or more powerful than picking up a book or something like that, or talking to a friend about this? And, Pat, we can look at my training, we can look at my expertise. I've got a PhD. I've been a psychologist for 30 years. I've been a psychospiritual transformational life coach for 15 of those 30 years. And I think that my experience, I have a thriving, successful practice, and I have touched the lives of probably thousands of people. And that should speak for itself. And I will also tell you that those things are important for what I have to offer. But I think what was most important was my life's journey. I think it's critical. It's what made this real for me. It's what made it palpable. It made it, something you could just sink your teeth into, and so I'd like to share a little bit about that. And it's interesting. You said a few minutes back, Pat, this whole idea of divine intelligence. And I want to share my experience with divine intelligence because this was the seed of this journey for me. This was at the core of this journey for me. And, it started back when as early as I can remember. Let's say probably my earliest memories were 4 or 5 years old. And I knew at that time, as a 4 or 5-year-old kid, I knew at that time that I had something in me. I had this divine intelligence. It's something I called later in life, I called it my higher self with a capital S. It was myself with a capital S. And what I realized was there was this presence in me. There was this knowingness. There was this wisdom that, obviously far surpassed any life experience that a 4 or 5-year-old could have. And, it was always with me. It was always with me. And, I'm going to give a little bit of background. I think this is important in terms of setting a tone. I was born in a pretty dysfunctional environment. My parents were both teenagers. My mother had been abandoned as a child and raised by extended family. And my dad grew up in a house of with a severe alcoholic in a very abusive situation. And I think they both were pretty broken, people when they got together and they got pregnant. And I, grew up in an environment of pretty severe impoverishment. I mean, I didn't have books to read. I didn't have a lot of toys. There were times I went without food. And not only that, but my parents were both very self-absorbed and very immature. My dad was a rageaholic, very violent. I felt, there was a lot of unsafety in my house, a lot of physical abuse, a lot of violence, a lot of unpredictability. And why do I share this? I share this because this is why divine intelligence was so important for me, because I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any nurturing. I didn't have a lot of love. And yet this voice deep within me is the part of me. It was what I relied on to get through life. It took care of me. It guided me. It protected me. It was always there. I could count on it. And, there were things that happened for me as well, in terms of guidance. You were talking about the fire escape. And I had a couple of situations that were very similar. And believe me, my examples of divine intelligence and its being in my life are endless. I could talk for days about this, but I wanted to share some ones that were really striking. One of them was when I was 6 years old. And, I grew up, and for those of you who don't know Denver, I grew up in what I would consider a seedy part of Denver. This is where there were adult bars and drunks and people on all kinds of drugs on the streets. It was a very bad part of the neighborhood. And that's where I grew up. And I remember a time when I was 6 years old, and it was with me and my little brothers. I had a 3-year-old brother and like a 20-month-old brother. And we were walking down the street of Denver. And all of a sudden, I just have this voice in me, and it says, cross the street. And I crossed the street and I kept walking. And I noticed as I crossed the street, I looked over to the other side of the street where I had left. And there was this man there, and he made me very uncomfortable. It was like, there's something that is not okay about this man. And I found out later that evening, this is very sad. I found out later this evening because we had some adults come to the house, and this man had actually sexually assaulted 2 little kids. And I'd gotten this guidance. And I have countless examples of that. I had this presence with me when I was in school. I mean, I had no clue what school was. I didn't have that experience at home. And, just being in school, I was the kid that was in the back of the room that kind of blended with the woodwork because blending was safe. And yet I always had that voice in me that says, do your best, do your best, do your best. And I did. I didn't know what I was doing. I just showed up and did my best. And, it took me pretty far. And then I get into high school, and I have no idea about college. I have no frame of reference. My mother was a high school dropout. And, I had no way of knowing, but I knew that I wanted to go to college. I had made that, I knew that in my being that was my next step. I had no idea how I was going to get there. But I just knew it. And this almost feels like magic. You think about divine intervention. I had no money. I had no direction. I didn't know where to start. I had no support. All I had was my own intelligence. I was a good student. I had great grades, did really well in school. And this shouldn't have happened. It did. I not only got into college, I went to a prestigious private university, full ride scholarship, and all my incidentals paid. And it just came together. And I really do believe that that's divine intelligence. It's like it conspires with you when you put out into the world, this is what's next for me. And it aligns with really the truth of who you are. The universe conspires with you. There's that divine intelligence that answers.
Yeah. And that is the key. You see, I think if we can go back to what you said earlier, Dr. A, it's so important for people to hear this. The confusion or illusion that we have created around empowerment or empowering. It is the thing that gets corporations in trouble time and time again. It's the thing that will get your relationship in trouble. It is the thing that if we don't have the meaning that you have talked about and your story of explaining so beautifully. See, you can't burn that. You cannot put that fire out that happens inside somebody. You and I come from very similar places, right? You know, we come from places of like, right? Stepmom has her first child 12, second at 13. Neither one of my parents, my birth, my dad, no. But how we got here? How did we get here? And what I love about what you said is you've got to have that fire within, that thing. See, that's the thing we don't talk about, especially when we do not talk. We don't talk about empowerment. We don't talk about how to ignite that flame within us. That is what we're calling self-empowerment. And you know, something you said earlier, which really got to me. Even though this Google description or whatever we want to call it that you looked up, you know what's funny about it? When you look, and I mean, try this, at the synonyms, this is what cracks me up. Self-improvement, self-development. Oh, wait, self-mastery. Okay. See, it doesn't say other people's development of you. It doesn't say self-help person. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't say that, and you know, self-emancipation. Who knew? Who knew? I love your story. I said to you during the break, I've had a lot of time to think as we're coming into 2024, and I'll tell you what I thought of during the break. Such an enormous feeling of gratitude, 2023. Not enough time to really talk about it. But I got hit hard at the thought of the loss of my best friend and one of our producers. She is the key to the success of the Dr. Pat Show, and that's Linda. And we came very close to losing her. And so, what does empowerment mean here? What does it mean? See, the empowered living part of that is that I fully believed and gave myself permission, which is called power, to get on a plane, make that decision, and help my friend come back to wellness. But if she wasn't willing to take that journey and step into the empowered living zone, there wasn't going to be anything I could do to help, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's an inside job. It's an inside job. And, you know, I think that we as a culture have really gotten kind of lost because everybody's looking outside of themselves for the answers. You know, they're looking outside of themselves to know what success is, you know, and they're finding these answers empty because it's in here, you know. And you talk about the fire. It's like there is nothing that is special about me, Dr. Pat. I am human. I'm as human as you are and anybody else. We all have this. We come into the world, this part of us, the empowered, the essence, the divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, is in the core of our being. Every one of us has this. None of us is without it, you know. And I think that's really important to realize, you know, that this is the seed. This is the core of being empowered. But that's not the whole story, though. Here's the interesting thing. And when I say the whole story, I don't only mean my story, and my story will continue to unfold, but the whole story of being empowered. Here's the second chapter or of my story, and it's got quite a different flavor to it. So, you know, I went through my early life, you know, being a child, going through college up until my late 20s. And I was just in that place of, I almost felt like divine intelligence was actually gently pulling me through by a thread, just pulling me through. And I was the one acting. I was the one, you know, it was my body doing it, but I felt like I just had that. And then at 29, I have joked about having a premature midlife crisis because I did have a midlife crisis at 29. I can tell you, the day I was standing in my living room. At one point, I got down on my knees. That's how disturbing this was for me. And I had everything, Dr. Pat. I had a PhD. I had a great job at a prestigious university. I was in a committed relationship. I was making great money. I bought my first house. I had my first fancy car. And I just sat there and I'm like, is this it? Why do I feel so empty inside? Why am I not happy? I should be happy. I should be on top of the world, and I'm not. What's wrong with me? What's going on? And I decided in that moment that that was not going to be okay with me. And it really pulled me into a direction. I started searching. I was literally looking things up about feeling empty, or, is this it? And, this was the door opening to a spiritual, like an active, conscious spiritual quest for me. Like, there's got to be more. And I started reading all kinds of things, different kinds of spirituality, books on spirituality, all kinds of stuff. And I'm going through this and I'm getting a taste. I'm feeling connected. I'm feeling connected to that part of me that I started losing some connection with. I started feeling connected with that. And then it was like a backdraft. Everybody knows what a backdraft is with a fire. You open up a door and whoo. And I feel like that's what happened in my life. I lost everything. I had just had a baby, and I lost my job. I got a call while I was on maternity leave that I lost my job. One or 2 weeks into maternity leave, my partner went AWOL, walked out, had an affair, got a DUI, lost their job, and walked out. I raised this son by myself. About lost my house. I mean, I lost it all. And what happened was, the reason why this was important was because it just, like I said, this backdraft, when I got into this place of sheer terror, it was almost like it just opened me up. And, people talk about awakenings. And for some reason, we have this idea that awakenings are beautiful and there's so much light and they're wonderful. And I'm going to tell you, that was not my awakening. My awakening was hell. I think I went to hell and back several times. My awakening, I was in depths of despair and terror, and it just opened me up. And what I realized was I wasn't living in my body. I wasn't living as Charlena. It's like I was up in the clouds. It was like I was with divine intelligence, and it just pulled me into it. And I spent the next couple of decades processing all of my trauma, being with therapists, doing EMDR, doing all of this work. And what it made me realize, Dr. Pat, is here's another element to being empowered. You don't just have divine intelligence. You got to be in your body. You got to own this space. You've got to be aware of and recognize that this is a beautiful machine. We've got divine intelligence, and we've got ourselves, the I, the ego, the I of us. And then we have experience. We have sensations in our bodies. We have things that happen that tell us what we need to do. We have feelings that propel us forward. And if you're not in your body, you're not able to use this. This is the second part of the equation, is you got to not only have divine intelligence, but you got to be in your body, and you got to be an actor. You got to be in it. It's beautiful what it tells you.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, I said this to you before, and thank you for sharing that. These are the things people don't know about us. See, this is why we have to talk more about it, because we're different now. Coming out of the pandemic, we're all different. And I find this especially in women. I can't speak for men, but I understand they're different too. But we're different now. And we're different in ways that allowed us to go through some of the darkest nights of our soul to really come through it more innovative, more creative. And I love that you talked about this awakening, because you're right. I think this is another illusion. It's the illusion of having these awakenings and being on some cloud of pure positive perfection. And the darkest nights of my soul have been what have led me to the brightest moments of my life today. And, you know, when you say that to people, there's a lot in between that, right? Just like what you shared. But this is part of empowered living as well. It's how does one go from the recognition and appreciation? I mean, you and I both can look back at a couple of those relationships and think, thank you, universe, today. We might do it today. We don't do it then because we're putting one foot in front of the other, aren't we? But what you did, that one foot in front of the other, and what you've now built for yourself is why you are the mastery of the empowered living zone. That's why you've created this, to say, wait a minute, this is not an outcome, it's a way of being. The empowered living zone is a way of being. It's not like an outcome. It is a process. It is a journey. It's the way we live life. You know, every thought of our day can be that of the empowered living zone, but we just don't know how to get there.
Right. And not only that is that people often are misunderstand. They think, well, I can't do that, or I can't be that because of this thing's in the way. And what I came to realize in my own journey, Dr. Pat, is the very things in your life, the obstacles, the hard stuff, the pain, the challenges, that is the way. That is the way. You need to have those experiences. The experiences are the seeds to your transformation. The experiences and the challenges, you know, along with divine intelligence right there with you as a co-partner, you know, it's these experiences that pull you into that zone, because at the end of the day, you have yourself being guided, and you choose. You have the power to choose what your experience is, what you're going to do with this, what it means to you. This whole idea of power. And it doesn't matter what you've gone through. That is always there to you and for you. Yeah.
But this is why this is the first of the series, and I want to congratulate you. I don't think there are people that are listening to that know what goes into preparing for a show like this. And of course, for us, we know what we do to help people because we've been doing this for 20 years. We know what the audience wants to hear more. We are different. We're not your average podcast place. We focus on transformation. We focus on positive centric media. We don't leave any conversations out, right? We're not leaving anything out. You know, we're getting ready. There's multiple channels, the women's channel, the recovery channel. We just came up with it, you know, a name for recovery, you know, the recovery impact. I mean, there are certain things that we're doing because we listen to what people say they want. What you've developed is a way to help other people because of what others have shared with you and how to move through those dark moments, those days of differences, and achieve what they want to in life. And that's what we need now. We don't just need a word saying empowered, or a t-shirt saying I'm empowered. We need to understand how to get from where we are today to where we want to go. And then we need to understand also, when you talk about the empowered living zone, you can do this with anything, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This could be far reached and widespread. Yes. I mean, if everybody was practicing this, if employers were practicing it, oh my gosh, can you imagine what would be possible? Organizations, governmental agencies, what could be possible if we were all in that zone? Holy cow. It would blow my mind. It would blow my mind.
Well, thank you for having me on today because I know there's much more to come, right?
Absolutely.
This is the first.
This was just a taste. There was so much more to share. And I am on the first and third Tuesdays of every month at noon Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And next time we meet, we're going to dig into more of the details about what it means to be in that zone. And I look forward to sharing that with everybody. And before we end today, if anybody would like to contact me or learn more about empowered living or psychospiritual transformational life coaching, they can contact me through my website, which is www.empoweredlivingcoaching.com. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pat.
Well,
Thank you for being an inspiring partner.
You know, I want to just say it is an honor, and the honor is far deeper than any words because you said yes to helping people along the way experience a new freedom, experience a new level of their own personal development, and experience a new joy. And see, that's what I get out of your message, right? Our theme this year is 2024, the year to expect more. And we have an acronym for what more means, because we've not been playing to win. We've been playing not to lose. And it's time to change that. And thank you for starting the year off perfectly to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pat. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next one.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you all.
Thank you for tuning in to the Empowered Living Zone show with me, Dr. A, to create the life you crave. Tune in on the first and third Tuesdays at noon Pacific Time on transformationtalkradio.com and get ready for another show. Say yes to creating positive and empowering change in your life and move beyond life's challenging terrain into the zone of success. Be ignited by spirit, fueled by purpose, and guided by vision in the Empowered Living Zone. For more information on how to do deep transformational work with me and to create the life you crave, visit empoweredlivingcoaching.com. That's empoweredlivingcoaching.com. See you next time.